El que está filmando esto es... el que está filmando esto es... ¿Sabes?
So here was one of the first places where I kind of felt comfortable with who I was, and it really reinforced some ideas that I learned at home. My school reinforced it. Majority of the staff and faculty here were Latino or spoke Spanish, and they knew some of the Latino culture. They really helped my parents out and other parents, because they knew that these parents worked day and night, and they offered these after school programs that helped these students and the parents out, and they understood. And there was a very good amount of parent teacher involvement, parents that would be involved in the school trips and everything like that. And they also they had these cultural events or cultural appreciation events. They asked these Latino students well, would you like to be part of a presentation, and a dance, and just a whole presentation that they would have. And here they would have that. They would have these presentations. The kids would dance. The teachers would involve the students, let them know so this is the history of the Mexican culture. I kind of wish they would delve into other cultures as well, just not the Mexican culture. But regardless, they were some good involvement. Here as well, the teachers, Spanish was my first tongue, so I was put in bilingual classes, and those classes really helped me develop as a person. English came to me it was kind of hard for me to grasp, but the teachers helped me out. And as first to third, these teachers really reinforce these values, hey, it's okay to ask for help. Don't be ashamed that just because Juanita and Juanito are not asking for help, that doesn't mean you shouldn't be asking for help. You shouldn't be embarrassed of it. And they really reinforced of we're a community here, and no one's gonna be left out. And I at a young age I really appreciated that, and it made me kind of into the person that I am now. Because after we moved from here, I found it very difficult trying to adapt to a school where everyone's doing their own thing and you're just on your own. But I really thank the school for everything that it has done for me. I kind of wish I could have stayed here a little bit more, but I really appreciate it. Especially all the friends that I had. They were so nice to me, and I was really sad at a young age seeing them go. But I really appreciate everything this school has brought for me. This is one of the impactful things to me, and kind of started reinforcing those ideas, those Latino ideas of familismo. Well, not really familismo, other than my family, I have a really strong connection with them. But yeah, I remember walking here with my grandmother. We would walk from over there. I didn't live too far from here. We would walk a 5-minute walk, and we would walk to school every morning. And then she'd drop me off. She'd be like, okay, bye mijito, bye Awe. And then she would leave, and then I'd go inside, meet Miss Connie. She was one of the janitors. She was really nice to me. And just go throughout my elementary school life, and it was very nice. And I feel this is one of the reasons why I kind of understand what it means to be Latino, and I really appreciate it. So here's where I used to live. Lived here up until I was 8 years old. We had a lot of parties here, and I kind of feel bad for what used to be my neighbors. I know some of my old neighbors still live here. Here's where we would have majority of the parties. This is where my older brother grew up, where I grew up most of the time, and this is where my little sister was born. here it brings a lot of memories because there was good memories and bad memories. Majority of the people that lived here were either people of color or Latino, but not as much white people that would used to live here. A lot of the Latino culture, it was, like the comadre, the compadre, they came here. Some extended family used to live here as well, so we were all like in these apartments. We were pretty close to each other, but as time went on, everyone started going their own separate ways. But my parents were like, well, this is one of the reasons why we came to the United States. Like we had family at first they were in California, then they moved to Houston. They were like, we went to California because your dad had family there, but then they all moved to Houston, and they all lived like within walking distance. Like if we needed something, we just knocked the door and they were right there. Or my mom's closest friends also used to live here. Like I used to live over there, and we just go there. Like I lived there, and then my family friend lived right across. If we needed something, we can ask for help. Or if we had a party, we would invite them. That familismo, compadreismo, type of ideas was very intertwined here. And this is where I spoke majority of my Spanish, because everyone here spoke Spanish. I would also face, like, I know eres pocho, like, you're too American. And I'm like, no, I speak Spanish, and, I watch novelas with my mom. I, listen to Joan Sebastian, Los Bukis, all that other stuff. They're like, yeah, but you're too American. You're not Mexican. And I'm like, in my head, in my little tiny head, I'm like, no, I'm Mexican and American. And then I kind of had like an identity crisis, like then and there. I was like, no, I'm American, but I'm also Mexican. But I was like really confused, and I asked my mom, like, ma, ¿por qué me dicen que no soy mexicano? And then she would be like, es porque naciste aquí y hablas el español un poquito raro and all this other stuff. And I'd be like, no. But here's where I had some identity crisis. But overall, I liked it here, and I missed it a lot when we had to move, because once we moved, there wasn't a sense of community. It was like everyone had to fend for themselves, and I found that very like difficult for me and for my parents as well, because like we would have family all together, and now we're all like separated. Granted, it wasn't like I was a kid, so I thought it was like far away, but now looking back at it, yes, we were separated, but it was probably like a 15-20 minute drive. It wasn't that bad. But yeah, this apartment complex has brought good and bad memories that I kind of shaped me into the Latino that I am now, and I really appreciate it. So right now I'm at one of the very first churches that has had a significant impact in me in terms of what it means to be Latino and what has shaped me to the person that I am now. I would come here with my family. We would pray. We would come to church. Cantamos las canciones that they would sing in there. Alabaré, 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 alabaré. Like all the fun stuff. And this is where I got my baptism done. Religion in my family has been something very important, as in a lot of, or majority of, Latino families. We've struggled a lot throughout the years, and my mom specifically, she's the most religious person in our household, and she would always ask me, mijo, vamos a rezar, like things are not okay right now, like let's pray and hope, for the best. Little me, I didn't really understand much, and I just, I was raised knowing, hey, there's a higher power, Jesus died for your sins, and, the whole aspect of, Catholicism, because that's something I was, born with. And, I didn't really question it up until, I saw the death of a friend, and, I really questioned, well, if God is really nice and everything, why did he have to let a friend of mine die? That's, Like, why do we do this? You know, I was really questioning it at a young age, and my mom was like, no, don't think of that. Stop. Like, the reason we've made it this far is because of God, and, you know, God has a plan for us. And, you know, of course, you know, I'm young, I'm going to believe my mom. Okay, God has a plan for us, and if this is part of my plan, you know, so be it. And that's kind of, you know, I feel like religion kind of, you know, also impacts, you know, fatalismo, you know, fatalism. You know, we can come to terms with reality, like, well, this is reality, this is what it is now. I can change it, but not as much as I want it to, which is good, because, you know, sometimes, you know, my dad lost his job as well. We had to come to terms that, you know, my dad lost his job, we have to keep on going, look for a new job. And, you know, within the next couple of months, my dad found a new job. So, you know, religion really, you know, helped me and my family, you know, stay in place, but move forward. And, you know, like, it allowed us not to falter as much. And it really brought us together as a family, because we would have, you know, these posadas, we would have, like, you know, impactful days, like when vamos a cortar la rosca, we would have parties for that. And that, you know, that really brought us as a family together to, you know, celebrate Jesus and Christ and what is Catholicism. And, you know, I thank Catholicism for that, because, you know, if my family and a lot, and for several Latino families, if we didn't have that, we would have been, you know, it would have been a little bit harder. And luckily, like, this church had a really big Latino community, and they really helped my parents out whenever, like, we didn't have food. Like, they would have food drives, you know, and they also had a Sunday school, you know, which reinforced, you know, these ideas of Catholicism. I started questioning it as I became older. I don't practice it as much now, but, you know, I respect it, and I respect the views that my parents have. And, you know, just because I don't practice it, like coming to church and everything, I do practice it in private, you know, because, you know, it's something that I grew up with. I just can't just drop it like a textbook and move on. Like, I still pray to God when, you know, we're in difficulties, or when I'm in stress, or when a family member in Mexico is sick. Like, I pray to God. I'm like, hey, it's me again. Religion is a big part as to, like, what makes me Latino, because it brings my family together. It allows us to stay strong. It allows us to persevere and continue even when things are difficult. And it has helped my family a good amount, but it also has done quite some damage, because two of our family members in my family are, my older brother is gay, and I'm bisexual, and it was kind of hard for my parents to come to terms with that, considering their religious background. But they came around, and they're respected, and me and my older brother thank our parents for that. As much as it sounds negative, it has helped me and my family a lot, and I really appreciate it, because without it, we probably wouldn't have made it as far as we are now. Growing up as a child, I've always had a nickname. It was Chias, because I always cried a lot. I was a very sensitive child, and if anything, I would almost cry. If it was towards me, or if people were making fun of me, I would always shed a tear, cry, or tell my mom. And at that time, my parents kept on calling me Chias, my family Chias, and I took it as a name that was making fun of me. I didn't like it. It meant crybaby, or you crying. I didn't like it, because growing up as a child, I've always had a nickname. It was Chias, because I always cried a lot. I was a very sensitive child, and if anything, I would almost cry. If it was towards me, or if people were making fun of me, I would always shed a tear, cry, or tell my mom. And at that time, my parents kept on calling me Chias, my family. I call myself that. My parents were kind of surprised, because they thought, like, oh, he's gonna keep on crying, like, ahí viene Chias, vaya a estar llorando. But I took it as my name, it's my term. I'm gonna, like, bend these norms, these gender norms that we have, that men are supposed to be these strong, tough acting men, you know, that help out outside, that you do the work for the family. And I took it and I flipped it around almost, because I allow myself to show emotion with my family, and that's something that my dad and my brother don't often do, and it takes them a lot for them to cry. But for me, I am a very outgoing, almost flamboyant person, and sometimes my mom even tells me, "Oh, actúa como un hombre, tú eres un hombre," and I tell her, like, I understand that there's some norms, but we shouldn't be following them all of the time, because these norms can be kind of toxic. Like, I enjoy being inside, helping my mom clean, cook, and all these things, but oftentimes they tell me, "No seas huevón, vete afuera, trabajar como un hombre," and I tell her, I understand what you're trying to say, but at the same time, that's kind of an attack towards me, because you're telling me that I'm feminine, and I really don't mind. But at the same time, you shouldn't be telling my little sister to cook and clean, because that's going to make her a better housewife. I mean, everyone needs those skills, not just a woman. And little by little, they started to understand that these norms aren't really helpful, that sometimes they can be damaging. They can help a person, but they're not entirely helpful to the person itself in a way, if it's meant to attack or degrade them. And as a result, this led to a lot of conflicting thoughts at home, because as the time was continuing, I was becoming more acculturated, and since we moved, there was a change of schools and a change of settings, so I became more acculturated with American society, since there wasn't that many Latino students at my new school at that time. I wanted to experience independence, but my family is very family oriented and doing everything together as a person. So it was difficult for me to begin exploring this idea of independence when I wanted to include my family, or my family would sometimes restrain me, and I would sometimes be angry or get angry with them or myself, because I couldn't be independent myself. And there was also the idea of mental health. My parents didn't really believe in that up until the point when my brother was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and he attempted to commit suicide. Like, that really opened their minds to, this is a real thing. Like, people actually struggle with this, not something that we can treat with just like curanderos or sobaderos. Like, we actually need to see a doctor. And it was kind of sad that it took up to that point for them to notice that, but at least it was able to change their perspective of mental health. But at that time, I was also struggling in high school, because I was the first one in my family to go to college or go to high school and actually going to college, and I didn't know what to do, and I felt like that was another stress in my life that wasn't needed, and I wished I had more help in that area. So at the end, thinking about what makes someone Latino, I feel like it's family and the struggles that we go through. Language doesn't make you more or less if you can't speak it, or if you can't speak it, that doesn't make you more or less of a Latino. But we all share some experiences with our family, our culture, and with religion. Either they can be positive or negative. They don't make you any more or less, but they somewhat define it shapes us into the person we are now, loving and caring about the people around us.